This award is not about spotlight or ceremony, it's about character. It's about honoring someone who's consistently made our community better, not for credit or applause, but simply it's because who they are. If Reed Spring were to ever officially name a favorite son, we could probably skip the vote. It would be this man. Born in Aurora, raised in downtown Reed Spring, he spent his entire life pouring into this community. And I don't just mean years, I mean wisdom, work ethic, leadership, service, stories, and a whole lot of heart. Harry Phillips summed it up perfectly to me. He is Mr. Reed Spring. He has done just about everything there is to do here. This year's recipient lives the Reed Spring spirit to his core. And tonight we honor Mr. Jim Holt. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet, Jim. Now, the funny part about this is I knew the only way to get Jim here without him knowing why he was here was I told him he needed to write a speech for somebody else. And I tried my best to make sure that Jim understood that it was not to be a long speech in order to keep him from really putting a whole lot of work into it. So I told him I just need a couple minutes for you to talk about Steve Berman. So Jim, luckily you're off the hook tonight because there is no speech needed for Steve Berman. This is for you. Jim's roots run deep. His great-grandmother, Winnie, was the first woman elected to the Reed Spring School Board. His mother, Virginia, was a fixture in the Presbyterian Church. His father, Nelson, served this community in his work, both vocational and volunteer, for nearly every single one of his 99 years on this earth. And Jim took that as legacy and turned it into a lifelong mission. Jim graduated from Reed Spring High School in 1973, and instead of heading off for something bigger, he stayed. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. He chose to teach, lead, and build up the very place that built him. He started out teaching junior high science in the same building he once walked as a student, and went on to serve as principal and eventually athletic activities director. Along the way, he earned his master's and specialist degrees, helped oversee the construction of new athletic facilities, including our current gymnasium and Carl Langley Field, led our transition into the Central Ozark Conference, and was even named District Athletic Director of the Year. And all of that is impressive, but it's not what makes Jim Holt Jim Holt. What sets him apart is the quiet, steady way he's always showed up. For 38 years, Jim was the public address voice for Wolves football, never accepted a dime for his work. His calm, never too excited voice became part of our Friday night soundtrack. I don't know about any of you, but anytime I hear Jim speak, I'm instantly teleported back to those Friday nights. In my case, it was probably a lot of number 62, Josh Cherry missed the tackle. Touchdown, Bolivar. He also did basketball public address for 20 years. In January of 2012, escorted by his then 93-year-old father, Jim was inducted into the very Reed Spring Sports Hall of Fame that he helped create. And the gymnasium was officially renamed Jim Holt Court. And I think we can all agree that's exactly where it belongs. Jim wasn't much of an athlete himself, but make no mistake, he's a sports fanatic, especially when it comes to the St. Louis Cardinals. His friend Teresa Smith warned me, as I know, you better not get in his way when the Cardinals are playing. And that wasn't a joke, that was a survival tip. Now, one of my favorite Jim Holt stories is one that I'm not sure has ever really been told publicly. Back in the early 2000s, there was an opening for a head baseball coach job at Reed Spring. One of the applicants was a fresh-faced, just out of college kid named Chris Funk. He'd been coaching at the legendary Show Me Baseball camp just down the road. It was a small-town camp with a big league pedigree. Now, Funk asked the camp director, Chris Schroeder, for a letter of recommendation, and Schroeder instead picked up the phone and called his friend and frequent camp guest, Gaylord Perry. Yes, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher, Gaylord Perry. Now, Gaylord had coached alongside Chris Funk for several years and asked if he too would be willing to write a letter of recommendation for Funk. But Gaylord didn't want to just write a letter. He said, why don't I just go talk to the athletic director? And so, one afternoon, knowing Funk's interview was that day, Gaylord Perry and Chris Schroeder drove straight to Jim Holt's office. Now imagine this, Jim's in his office conducting what he thinks is just your run-of-the-mill high school coaching baseball interview when there's a knock at the door. He opens it to find 6'5", 300-plus-pound Hall of Famer, Gaylord Perry, standing there. A man with 314 wins, 2 Cy Youngs, and a fastball that probably still had bite even in his mid-60s. Gaylord sat down with Jim and talked about life, baseball, and had many praises for Coach Funk. And when he left, he pulled out a photo from his playing days, signed it, and gave it to Jim. and I know firsthand that photo still has a proud place in Jim's home baseball collection. As Jim put it to me, that was the first and only time I've ever had a recommendation for a coaching hire come from a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. Needless to say, Chris Funk was hired. I also need to mention that throughout all the years, all the meetings, games, events, there was not 1 ounce of dirt I could dig up on Jim Holt when I was writing this speech. I was desperate to find an embarrassing Jim Holt story, and his best friend Doyle Childers told me I've known Jim my whole life, and I don't think the man's done anything embarrassing his entire life. Which means either Jim's a saint or is just really good at hiding evidence, so I'm not sure which is scarier. Jim's what I would call a walking archive. He can tell you exactly what year you or your mom or your cousin graduated high school. I was at his house recently and I was looking at all of his sports memorabilia he'd collected over the years. And it was then that Jim offered to show me his most prized possession. What I was sure would be a signed game-used bat by Stan Musial was actually his Reed Spring yearbook collection. From the late 1950s until all the way through 2012 when he and Linda retired, Jim has every single one. And if you ever want to take a stroll down memory lane, just ask him to pull one out and watch how his face lights up. Jim's impact reaches far beyond the schools. He was Master of Ceremonies for the Community Christmas Program for 40 years, a founding member of the Table Rock Lake Rotary Club, served on boards for the Table Rock Lake Community Foundation and the John Calvin Presbytery, and even helped found this very Wolfpack Foundation that I'm presenting this award on behalf of tonight. You name it, he's not only been involved in it, he's made things happen. One of his former students, Callie Stone, shared her thoughts. Quote, "Mr. Holt stands for our history, our memories, and our traditions." Callie also shared a moment from her first year of teaching when nerves were high and confidence may have been low. Jim walked into her classroom just to say, "I'm proud of you, let me know if you need anything." Callie added, "His life for so many years was devoted to our school and our kids. Jim Holt is an essential part of our pack, and there is no one like him." Another former student, Audrey Richards, said, quote, "The most remarkable thing about Mr. Holt is his steadiness. If you ask when I met him, I couldn't tell you because he seems to have always just been there. He's like an encyclopedia on the shelf, always there when you need it, and with more information than you could ever hope to remember. Jim stands as a reminder that kindness comes from paying attention, and true friendship is the result of consistency. I am proud to call Jim Holt my friend, and I'm proud to say the same. Jim's been a mentor and a friend of mine for nearly my entire life. If I need advice, to bounce an idea off someone, or just to talk about how poor the Cardinals pitching staff is performing, Jim has always been one of my go-to guys. Having deep roots in this town of my own, Jim was no stranger to my family. He was my mom's principal and was a friend of my grandparents and a host of my other family, some of them are here tonight. He was even neighbors with my aunt and uncle for many years. Some of my favorite conversations with Jim have been about my grandpa Kyle, who passed away when my mom was just a teenager, so I never got a chance to meet him. But Jim was around him a lot. And once when I was still in school, Jim was telling me stories about my grandpa's involvement in the school district and the family-owned businesses. He told me stories highlighting my grandpa's standing in the community, public works, and most importantly, his character. And I'm sure he could tell how much I appreciated those memories by the glow in my eyes. And as I was approaching graduation in 2011, Jim pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. "Josh, you've turned out to be a whole lot like your grandpa." That meant more than he'll ever know. In closing, there's one more thing that is quintessential Jim Holt. If you know Jim, you know that when he showed up in that red sports coat, it meant something. Big game, big event, big moment. It was his way of saying, without saying a word, this matters. So tonight, Jim, I want to tell you this award matters. You matter. Your lifetime of dedication to the school and love for this community matters. Now, I'll be the first to say I don't wear it quite as well as you, but it's my small way of honoring what you've given to all of us. Your time, your voice, your heart, your decades of service, friendship, of showing up not just when it was easy, but when it mattered most. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please join me in recognizing this year's Wolf in the Darkness, our red coat wearing, cardinal loving, yearbook collecting, memory keeping, dearly loved friend, Jim Holt.
Gee, Josh, I'm not sure what even to say. not too many times that I'm at a loss for words, but this is kind of one of them. This really means a lot, and I appreciate everybody that came together to honor me like this. Honestly, through the years, all I've ever really wanted to do is just be with everybody and be part of the family. And thanks to all of you who have allowed me to do that over the years. Josh was talking about the yearbooks, and you know, as I look back through those, to me, it's like looking at family photo albums. It really is, because there's so many memories that come back. Earlier this evening, over the table, Jason Barnes and Josh and I were talking about people and places and all that sort of thing that goes back years and years, and it really is. It's like being part of the family, and I really appreciate that. And once again, I just thank you. You know, you caught me off guard. I was ready to tell some stories on Steve Vernon. I'm not sure that I really had that many good ones, but I did try to keep it short anyway. So, thank you so much.